Decker, and this is a broadcast of our Beyond Betrayal ministry. In the aftermath of betrayal is that we oftentimes adopt attitudes and practices that undermine our own healing and growth. And so these self-sabotaging practices get in the way of our recovery, which is ironic, but it almost always happens that way. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about 5 of these self-sabotaging strategies. Altogether, I'll be taking a look at 6. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give an overview of these strategies, and then we're going to come back and take a deeper dive on each one of them. So let's go ahead and take a look at these first 5. We'll be right back. So we're talking about some of the self-sabotaging, self-protective strategies. And that's kind of a big mouthful. But what happens is that these self-protective, once we've been hurt, that we go ahead and we adopt these attitudes and practices to prevent ourselves from being hurt in the future. But they actually work against our own healing, growth, and recovery. And so it becomes like a trap for us. So we want to look at some of these, and I have a little slide presentation we can go through to learn more about these. So what we're doing here is that we are talking about how to lay aside your suit of armor, and that these are the ways that the behaviors that we resort to in the aftermath of hurt. And so the first one we want to look at here is withdrawal and isolation. After you've been hurt, you might distance yourself from others to avoid being further hurt. Now, I'm not talking, sometimes, we have to avoid connection with the person who has betrayed us. And what I'm talking about here is not that. I'm talking about how we oftentimes avoid connection with healthy people as a result of being hurt. And so what that ends up doing, it just leads to deeper loneliness and a lack of support. You see, one of the big mistakes that we make is that when we just stay stuck in our own thoughts, we have no way of checking and seeing whether or not what we're thinking and how we're feeling is that if it's moving us towards health and recovery. And so we just keep on kind of like circling around with our own ideas that we have. But each one of us were made for connection, and avoiding healthy people is not the solution to a bad experience. Another typical experience, a self-sabotaging behavior that people adopt following a hurt or betrayal, is that is developing trust issues. Now, betrayal can create deep-seated fears of trusting others, causing you to be overly suspicious or guarded in future relationships. Now, this is an important idea to recognize that your trusting is not the problem. The problem is unwisely trusting. So really what we have to do is learn how to discern the difference between wise trust and unwise trust. Another self-sabotaging behavior or attitude is anger and resentment. Now, you may struggle with intense feelings of anger and resentment following betrayal, and that's completely understandable. It's completely normal. But what that can end up doing is that when that goes to seed in your life and it becomes a character pattern, it can manifest itself in passive-aggressive behavior or ongoing bitterness. Harboring anger is the wrong way to live a good life. Harboring anger is a bad way to live a good life. And if you really want to heal, grow, and recover, this is one of these things. This is part of the suit of armor, that we adopt to protect ourselves from hurt. Another one is self-blame. Now, you might be tempted to internalize the betrayal, believing that you're at fault for what happened, leading you to feelings of self-condemnation or worthlessness. One of the things that I've noticed in all of the folks that I've coached and counseled with respect to hurt and betrayal is that I've never seen a situation, except for with respect to children, but I've never seen a situation with respect to adults where it's 100% of a failure on one party's part and there's 0% on the other. Now, sometimes we may be completely blind to the other person, but that blindness also is one of those character defects that we need to, or at least character patterns that we need to correct. And so walking through life with, not seeing, having a clear understanding of who we're dealing with, or having a healthy suspicion with respect to relationships. It's kind of like what Ronald Reagan said back in the day with respect to the nuclear arms race. He says, trust and verify. So there needs to be that verification, that checking component built in to our trusting. And so, but what I'm saying here is that seldom is it just 100% the other person's fault. But what happens is that we too often we will tend to begin to blame ourselves for our contribution to the problem, realizing that there is a difference between contributing to a problem and being at fault for the problem. And so kind of ruminating on your contribution doesn't do any good. So blame keeps you stuck and prevents your healing and growth. And so when you've been a victim of somebody's bad behavior and you've been subject to hurt and betrayal, is that you have to watch out and guard against this self-blame. Now, I'm not saying that all of these, that we're going to be practicing all of these all the time, but what I am saying is that there are a number of self-sabotaging behaviors that can contribute to our undoing when we've been hurt and betrayed. And another one of those is defensiveness. So what oftentimes we do in response to hurt and betrayal is to protect yourself from future hurt. You might become overly defensive in reacting strongly to perceived slights or criticisms. And this is, just quite frankly, this is an area in my life that I need to continue to grow in. I've made a lot of growth and progress in it, but it's still one of those areas that it can be a challenge at times. So defensiveness gets in the way of building healthy relationships and good communication. So what we're talking about here is how to avoid those self-sabotaging behaviors, those self-sabotaging actions, by adopting self-protective strategies. Like I say, it's kind of a convoluted concept, but but it nevertheless is true. And so I hope that you, by looking at some of these behaviors that we talked about today, that you're going to be better able to see these things in your own life and how you can guard against them. And we're going to be talking about what to do when you find yourself falling prey to any one of these behaviors. I would encourage you to like our broadcast, comment on it. I'm always interested in interacting with folks about these matters, and seeing how we can support you through all of this. You can share it, and you can also join our Beyond Betrayal Facebook group. It's there at beyondbetrayal.org. And then we also have a YouTube channel where our broadcasts live, and that's New Destiny Coaching on YouTube. And the channel's name is New Destiny Coaching. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you'll join me for the next time when we talk more about how we can avoid self-sabotaging behaviors with respect to these self-protecting strategies that we adopt following being hurt. That's it for now. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.